Okay, so I wanted to talk about a couple of other things. Let's review where we are. We have a game where I've got a paddle and I control it with my left and right arrows, and this ball moves around the screen, and I can bounce it up off the paddle if I want to. So, this is, again, the most primitive form of a video game. And also, as we move things around, and I'm not going to get into it in this class, but you may notice on a normal video game, for instance, when characters walk around a screen, they look like they're actually walking, like they move their arms and legs. They don't just sit there with one image that scoots around the screen, like my Mario example. That's called sprites, and sprites, like the soft drink, Sprite. So those are called sprites, and we're not going to get into sprites because that would almost be it would take too much time. The reason I'm having you do video games is because they makes you start thinking about logic and events, and so which means you're using ifs, you're using loops, and then. But if you're interested in this kind of thing, we can talk about sprites maybe offline or somewhere some other time. But but again, this is what we've got. So, but what was the next one? Space Invaders. So I'm not going to draw the actual Space Invader. That is kind of elaborate, but instead of the ball bouncing around here, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger and just have it move from left to right on the screen and bounce and go back and forth. So it'll be kind of like the Space Invader, and then my paddle will be a little bit like that base station, and then we'll have it shoot things up at the Space Invader. So like it'll shoot little projectiles. Now, I don't want to encourage violence. Consider these little expulsions of love that are spreading joy and happiness throughout the universe. So if you don't want to think of these in violent terms, this is abstract. It can be whatever you want it to be. But a very common theme in video games is that sometimes the player character will make projectiles go somewhere. We can make them friendly projectiles of friendship. Or the non-player character may shoot back. So in Space Invaders, both of those things happen. You can shoot at the Space Invaders, and every once in a while they drop a bomb at you. So how would we make that happen? Well, first let's change the parameters of the game a little bit. So I'm going to file save as this guy, and then let's save him as instead of the first graph sim, we'll save him as Space Invaders Dem 1. All right, Space Invaders Demonstration 1. All right, so what we've got now is the ball. The ball's going to be the invader. So these are invader variables now. And then the paddle is going to be we'll keep calling it the paddle. So what we want now is we don't want the invader, we don't want him to move up and down so much. For this simple example, we're just going to have him move left and right for now. So I'm going to comment out these lines. Again, when you comment, I think it's Control 4. Yeah, there we go. So I don't want to change the Y dimension. I just want to bounce this thing back and forth on the X dimension for the ball. So it's just going to bounce back and forth a while. And then with the paddle, it behaves basically like I want it to. I'm also going to make that ball a lot bigger. Let's make the ball 20 and 20, just so that it's more substantial there. And let me run this and see what I've got now. So, whoops. Oh, it's still moving in the Y dimension. What did I do wrong? I done did something wrong. It did make it bigger. Okay. So, all right. I think I see what I did. So I'm going to do Control 5, get rid of that comment. The Y, okay, so all I did was I messed with the thing that makes it bounce. But what I needed to do here was ball. Here we go. This one. This is the one that's causing it. So I think it's Control 1. No, that's not it. I'll just do Control 4. There we go. Okay, now let me run my code and see what happens, because what I want is the ball to just kind of move left and right. Okay, and that's not cool. I don't want it right at the very top of the screen. So let me change that for sure. See if it bounces. Yep, and that's it. So so right now the Y dimension is kind of frozen for both these. Like that guy will always stay at the top, and this guy will always move left and right. Okay, so let me kill this. And then I want to set that y so that's not at 0. So py should be 450. So what happened here? By plus my by. Where's by? This is what changes direction. And then why is it not? Okay. By should be by. Oh, is set to 0. So let's set it to like 50. Let's run this now. Okay, so that's about what I want. So let me kill this. But I want to start shooting it. I want to start shooting it. So let's have our missiles be red. Again, not encouraging violence here. These could be missiles of friendship. Okay, so our friendship missiles are going to be red. So what does that mean? Well, a missile's kind of just it's another kind of rectangle, right? So here, as we draw these rectangles, we need to draw one that's the missile. And then I guess we'll call this MX, MY, MW, and MH, right? So we're going to create all those same variables that we did for the other things. It would probably say it doesn't know what these things are. All right, so just like we have these for the paddle or the invader, and we should probably have direction for it too, right? So we'll say MX, M, get out of there, don't help me, MY. Don't you hate it when computers are trying to help you sometimes? All right, and MH. And then we'll call this MX direction, the missile's X direction, and the missile's Y direction. Okay, so right now, let's make the missile, we want to make it not very wide, right? We want to make the missile like, I don't know, maybe like, let's just make it like 3 or something. But we probably do want to make it tall. So let's make it maybe 10 tall. And then let's stick it somewhere where we can see it. So we'll put it here at 100 on 100. I just want to see what my missile looks like. Is this a good size for a missile? There we go. And I'm running. Okay, so that's what the missile's going to look like. Maybe I want that taller, right? But that looks like it might be a pretty good width. So the height, we'll make it, make this maybe 15 or 20. We'll make it 20. Okay, so, and now we've got missile X direction and missile Y direction. So here's what I'm going to say here is, let me take a little break and I'll come back and explain. Okay, so first thing here, we check to see if we're pressing keys left or right. Let's put in one for the missile. And we'll say that the missile gets fired if we hit the up arrow key. All right, so we'll say if keys Pygame, I'm just going to copy this code. We'll say K up. And pretty sure that's what it is. Then I'm going to set a flag here. We'll call it M status, the missile status, equals fired. So now up here with all the missile stuff, we'll say M equals, we'll say that this is waiting. Maybe we'll be more descriptive here. We'll say it's flying. So the missile's either waiting or it's flying. Okay, so now what? What I'm going to say is there's got to be two different types of logic here. One of which is if the missile is flying, and one of which is if it's waiting. Now, if it's waiting, what I think I'd like to do is draw it sitting on top of the paddle, just to signify that the missile's not in flight. It's just sitting on top of the paddle. So what I'm going to do here is say if M status equals weighting. I need the double equal sign, right? Then what do we do? If it's equal to weighting, then let's draw this thing sitting kind of on top of and in the middle of the blue paddle. How do we know where that thing goes? Well, what would be the math there? So the x and the y of it, mx should be equal to px, right? The x coordinate of px plus half of the width of it. Ooh, tricky. What am I talking about? Here, let me run this thing again. Here's the missile, but I would want the missile to be sitting up right here on top of the thing. So this is x coordinate of the blue paddle. This would be x coordinate of blue paddle plus the width. This would be x coordinate plus half the width. So I want the x position of the missile to be halfway there. So stop this. So what I would say is mx is equal to px, right? That's the blue one, plus pw divided by 2, and then probably minus 1, because this thing is, or maybe minus, because this thing is 3 pixels wide. So I think it'd be minus 1. Does that sound right? Minus 1. We'll try minus 1 and see if that works. So division would come first, so that's good. I think that'll work. What about the y? Well, we're doing the upper right-hand corner of it. So the x looks like it's right. Now what if I move this thing? Yeah, all right. But the y-coordinate's too tall. Where do I want it? Well, I don't want it to be the y-coordinate of the paddle, because that would be here. I want it to be the y-coordinate plus the height of the missile. So my equals what? It equals paddle y plus missile height. I think that'll work. Let's try it and find out. Oh no, that was terrible. So it's minus the paddle height, because I forget that y is like 0 here, and then the numbers go up the other way, the way that we don't think. So we'll say minus missile height. All right, let's see if that works out better. There it is. So this is my little battle station, or my station of love and joy and harmony in the world that will shoot its missiles of harmony. That looks like it's kind of in the middle, but maybe not. I don't know. This thing should be, what, like 1 over from dead center, but it looks like it's more than that, doesn't it? 2 minus 1. Let me try this. See if that helps, because it looked like it was a little too far to the left. Let me run it again. That's probably right, I guess. I don't know. That looks kind of janky to me, like it's too far to the left. It's too far to the left because my x is minus 1. Mx, the missile x is minus 1. I guess let me get rid of that minus 1, because it just doesn't look right to me. It might be right. It just doesn't look right to me. Ultimately, with graphics, you want them to look right. And let me stop our execution and run it again. And here we go. All right, so there's my little missile platform. I'm going to shoot the little ball. Now, how do we make this thing fire? Okay, so here's the thing. If it's flying, then we need an else if here, right? Because it can't be both waiting and flying. So elif, whoops. Actually, it'd just be else, right? Because it's either going to be waiting or it's flying. Now, if it's flying, we want it to start moving toward the top of the screen. So instead of setting all this, we want it to keep the x and y coordinates that it had and just add to them. So what I want is the x coordinate's going to stay the same. I'm not going to change it, but I am going to change the y coordinate. So my equals my minus equals, we'll say minus 2, because we want the missile to move pretty quickly. Let's say minus 3. All right, let's see if this works. Oops, I think I didn't stop execution. Okay, there we go. All right, so I can move left or right when I hit my up arrow. Oh, it goes the wrong way. Why are you going? Okay, I shot my missile down into the earth. I have not defended my homeland from the space. Oh, I did minus minus. There we go. Now, what we should do is replace this with a variable called m speed. So we'll do that, m speed. We'll say, and you'll kind of see why as we keep doing this. All right, and let's run it. And there we go. All right, here we go. And I hit my up arrow. Oops, and it blew up. M speed is not defined. Oh, but M speed is here. So I've got too many E's. So, and let me run it again. Okay, I can move left. I can move right. Fire my missile. There we go. So everybody see what just happened there? All right, now, what just happened? My missile just flew off the screen, and that's it. Now, what would we probably like to do is maybe once the missile flies off the screen, so when the x-coordinate gets this thing completely off the screen, then probably just erase that missile now because it's gone, we can't see it, and then let's put another missile down here. So how would we do that? I would say that once we do this, then if my is greater than or it would be less than, right, because it's y coordinate, less than or equal to 0 minus missile height, then what? Then we'll say m status equal weighting. And then that should basically do it. Let's try this and see what happens. So what I want is for this missile to reappear if it goes off the screen. So yeah, there we go. Ah, get it, get it, get it. All right, and once it disappeared, we got another missile. So this just keeps us from firing too many missiles. Okay, so now the missile is not blowing up the ball. So what's going on there? What you'd have to do is set up a collision event, right? So maybe if any part of the missile hits any part of the ball, you'd have to do it, you'd have to handle it the way we did here, right? Where if we tried to see if the ball hit the paddle, but instead of the ball hitting the paddle, we'd have to see if the ball hit the missile. So I won't go ahead and do that. I'm just going to put in how to make a projectile show up and start shooting people. So, or again, dispensing love and wisdom throughout the universe. So here we go. So really, once you can do that, you can program any video game. Now, really, I mean, at least the 8-bit and 16-bit video games, you can program any of them once you can do these things, once you can make things move. Now, some of you are thinking, well, but like this is stupid. This, my player character only moves left and right. Well, a lot of those early video games, the players only did move left or right, or sometimes they only moved left to right and they couldn't move left again. So they just kind of constantly moved to the left and the scenery would scroll. So, but the thing is, how can we get it to move in 2 dimensions? Well, we would just unlock that Y dimension here. The only reason this doesn't move left and right is because of that. And maybe instead of having it be the up arrow, if you want to be able to move your character up and down, maybe you might want to have space bar, right? So I think it's, we'll try it like this. Maybe that, yeah, there we go, okay, space. So that's letting me know. Oh, stop it. All right, and so instead of up arrow, my space bar should cause this thing to shoot. Oh, hold on. No, it's not working. Left and right arrow working. Oh, probably didn't hold execution last time. Yeah, there we go. So when I hit my space arrow, it lets it go. And then that lets me free up the up and down arrows so I can move my character in 2 dimensions. So there's a lot, but again, now if you're sitting there thinking like, okay, well now I know I can move my character in 3 dimensions or 2 dimensions and not just 1 dimension left or right. But he still doesn't look like he's walking. It doesn't look like a person walking or anything like that. That's where you'd have to get into using sprites to animate your characters. So we won't cover that here. Just be aware that that would be your next step, is to create a set of sprites that indicate movement of the character, and then you just write into your code how the sprite is handled. Now, the other thing that I'll add, and this may be valuable in business, like especially if you're doing geolocation or any number of things, you can change the background here to a photograph. So it doesn't have to be this, a solid color. So let me pull up the code that does that. So I think it's Pygame image load. Let me see if I can find a, I'm going to surf the internet and see if I can find an image. Actually, let me skip that one. I think we'll put that in, we'll leave that as a lecture point that you guys can know how to do that. I don't want to dig too deep into here, but that's kind of the 3 things that you would need. So again, the only thing this is missing now is what happens when it hits the ball. I mean, you could do anything. You could change the color of the ball, or you could make the ball disappear. You could make it explode, or you could make it turn into 2 different little balls. Also, in Space Invaders, every time the Space Invader hits a wall, it goes down a little bit further. So what you could do here is you've got this here, and let's see here. What you can do is make it go down more. So if it changes the direction, oh, let's see. Here's where is it? We want to go where it's doing BY. So yeah, it's this one. So if it hits BX, then we want to increase BY. I change the direction and increase BY. Here, I'll show you what I mean here. So BY plus equal, we'll say 3. All right, what's it doing here? When it hits this wall, it should drop down a little bit and come down and down. Okay, so let's see if that happens. There, see how it dropped down just a little bit? Let's make it a little more dramatic so you can see it. Make it 5. So this way we can make it so you have to shoot this thing before it drops all the way down and overtakes your position. Or maybe if the ball collides with your base, then it blows up your base. That's basically how there. See how it's going to drop down a little bit more each time. So that's the basics of setting up a pawn game or even a Space Invaders game. Space Invaders, I think there were only two sprites for each 2 sprite images for each creature that was on there. They just kind of alternated every time they took a step, and they didn't move smoothly across the screen. They go like and every time they moved, they would change the image. So all of that will be part of your second assignment.